we have the story of Genesis 37 that actually comes from a very tricky situation. We have Levi, who has, is it Levi, Isaac? Okay. Jacob and Esau come out of the womb. And I know it seems like it's a little messed up there, but trust me, go back through the story, you'll figure it out. I'm not stuck in that story. So I'm going to put it out like this. Jacob had done some very bad things, but yet he had a blessing from God, and that's cool for a reason. Jacob figured that out when he was able to take all his father-in-law's stuff. And then he had to go to Esau, which is his brother. Very interesting story, isn't it? Jacob would be the one who would actually found what they say is the actual first altar of God, Bethel. Now, that makes a lot of sense. Now, as you see these stories, are pictures moving around and stuff. This is from that book, this Bible, my grandmother's, as well as some other stuff I showed. So we're going to take that story real quick, and we're going to lead into Joseph. Now, Jacob had to go from his brother Esau. He took his flocks, his family and everything, and he moves close to a place known as Canaan, which will eventually be Moses' land. So Jacob, that close, is now being called Israel. He has 12 sons. His youngest he favored the most because it says he had an old soul like him. Kind of pre-equipped what his destiny is going to go forth. He sees it. The design happening. And in that design, he loved Joseph so much he'd make him a coat of many colors. Now, a lot of people say, I don't want to hear a boring story like that. This is not what we're talking about. This does not get boring. If anything, we're wrapping up. Here we go. We're going to start with chapter 37. We are going to go to verse 3. Chapter 37, verse 3. I'm going to read it from right here, this book. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all the children because he was the son of his older age, and he made him a coat of many colors. The coat of many colors was about the principles being pre-built. Everything this child would need would come from an anointing he himself understood. He understood what it would take to get to his design. There's a reason and a purpose for this. So he felt so close to Jacob, felt closest to him. Why? Because all of other Jacob's sons are grown men with wives and other children at this point. Here's Joseph, the little guy. They don't want him because he's too young. But yet Joseph was made a coat of many colors and distinguished among the whole areas of people. So mostly everybody knew about the coat and the way he felt about Joseph. So this made, in verse 4, you find this made all the brethren upset at Joseph. Because here's what it says. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him. They could not speak peaceably unto him. They did not like the coat of many colors he was wearing. His appearance offended them. And of course, let's hold on. There was other people talking too. It was like you'd go outside for these older brothers and sisters who are all talking about what Jacob's doing. Because Jacob is in a place of rest as an elder. And he's sending out his children to do as they're supposed to do with their flocks. While he's maintaining his, he's sending Joseph out to take care of the situations, the tiny details. So the brothers won't even speak to him. It's like walking through an alleyway and there's your brothers. They don't even really want to speak to the brother because to them, they offend him. It happens a lot in a lot of our lives today between people. You know, and it happens a lot to everyone. Here we go. And Joseph, he ends up dreaming a dream. This is verse 5. He ends up dreaming a dream. And he told it to his brethren, and they hated him more for the dreams that he told. For example, a very good example is this. Like this morning when I was waking up, I felt the hand shake my hand and says, "Prosperity, thank you to you for this." I woke up out of that dream. And the beautiful part to that is when we sat back and it gave me the remembrance of Joseph, this story. So here I am telling it to the world the way I'm perceiving it and sending it out. So what happens next with Joseph? He's laughing with them. I had this dream. Well, they hated it even more. And this is what he said. He said, "For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my shaft arose." My shaft arose. There you go. And also stood up right. It stood upright. There was nothing missing in that staff. And behold, your staffs stood around and about and made obedience to my staff. So when we're talking to people, it's hard to communicate. So Joseph is laughing. I had this dream. Well, now, you have that feeling, that oddness. Because what did they dream? Because they dreamed of horrors happening, bad things happening. I don't really think so. Because this is what it tells us. And that's what it tells us in the Bible. That's not really their problem. Their problem is they're afraid he's going to take everything they got. For example, here we go. And his brothers said unto him, this is his brother, they say it unto him, "Shall thou indeed reign over us? Or shall thou indeed have dominion over us?" So they knew about the dream. They interpreted. So they're worried about their dominions. But Joseph's not worried about their dominions because he sees something else. They're worried about, of course, what they've got. And that's understandable. I mean, anybody today would know. Everyone's worried about what they got because the way everything seems to be rolling these days. So the story does relate very much in the world we live in today. Very much so. Still that connection, that feeling there. And then, and they hated him yet for the more of his dreams and for his words. So, behind Joseph's back, they're hating him. Because I'm going to tell you, he's a kid. He's 12-year-old, somewhere around the age of 12, they say. So, you're going to run into the next couple of years. No telling how old he is at this point. For his brethren to sit and listen to this and say, "I'm not going to hear this." So they don't pay attention. They walk on. They want everybody else to know they're walking away. So everybody else knows that. Joseph has really got nowhere to go. Nothing is left for Joseph. And he dreamed yet another dream. This time he does something different. Watch this. Watch what Joseph does this time. Because they are scorning him and he knows he's being scorned. He's the underling. He's just not, their material. But he pulls something very slick. See, Joseph knows he's got to say it another way. So this is what he does. And then he dreamed yet another dream and told his brethren and said, "Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obedience to me." How's that even possible? Now you have brethren who are scared to death because he just won't quit. He keeps on telling it. Crazy how this world works today, the same way. Same way. There is so many out there who are so worried they're getting picked on. And that's the farthest thing from what's happening. So as a pastor, I sit here and I look back at what I read and how I'm trying to perceive this story. That I know somewhere there's a prick in everybody. That makes a lot of sense because we've had that connection, we have that feeling. But Joseph does something very curiously this time. And he told it to his father. So this time he's done told his father, "Hey, something ain't right about my dreams. I need to know what's going on." and his brethren. So he tells the story to his father, to his brethren, to everyone. And his father rebuked him. Oh no. No, careful what you're saying, child. You never know what you're saying. Jacob was very spiritual. Very spiritual. He done bad things, he done great things, he done good things. But he was very spiritual at what he did. So he had to be careful, because he knew by rebuking whatever dream he had, God is the interpretator of it. He's going to interpret it how he sees it. He's going to work it to his benefits. And this is what happens. What is the dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother, so Jacob and his mother, and thou, brethren, indeed come, and how down ourselves to thee on the earth? In other words, so we're going to come and bow down to you. All of us. Every one of us. So now Joseph, even in his own mind, is like, no, I want nobody to bow to me. That's not the point. Not my mother, not my dad. The bowing down, indeed, taking over. That's a feeling only Joseph can understand. But Jacob understood it. And he said to his brethren, envied it, and his brother, okay, verse 11, chapter 27, stick with me. And this is verse 11, go ahead. Read it. Okay. And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same, and his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shalom. Now there's a reason I said it like that. I know it doesn't seem to match what we're getting at, but there's a reason he did this. Very reason he did this. He's telling his brethren, go ahead and go on. But I'm observing Joseph's words very carefully. That is what elders do for the children. They're listening. We know where we've been. We know what we come through. Hear us out. So Jacob curiously knows something is going to happen. So Jacob's brethren has their own flocks. You'll read they have their own flocks. They have their own families. So they should be attending to that. But Joseph is told by Jacob, I'm observing you. I want to know what it is you're doing at all times. So what did he do? He sends Joseph out to go check on his flock. But the brethren are there. They're supposed to be checking on their own flocks. Why are they messing with their dad's flocks? Curiously. Very curiously. And we're going to go with verse 13, chapter 37, Genesis. Here we go. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. In other words, I'm sending you to them. And when he said to him, here I am. So he's the last one left. He's saying, here I am. And he said unto him, go, and I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and whether with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came unto Shem. So he goes out walking around. He goes out talking. He finds his brother and his brethren somewhere they're not supposed to be. So why? Well, they see him coming. We find out. So we're going to move on down here. I want to get here. There's a man where they are. This man knows the brother. He sends Joseph. So we're going to move on down here. Now, the brethren standing around and don't. No wonder why. They're not even supposed to be there. So that means Jacob's flock is nowhere. So when the brethren see him coming, it's like, oh my God, here he is. Why can't we get away from this idiot? Let's think about it. Here he is with his coat on. Everybody knows who he is. La da 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 da. Here I come, and there's nothing they can do about it. But here's what they do. Genesis 37, verse 18. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. So they've been talking about it for a while. They've been talking about it. But watch this. And they say one to another, behold, this dreamer cometh. Here he comes. What else is he going to tell us? What else is he going to do? What else is he up to? If we don't stop him, we got no control of him. Now next up. Verse 20, come now therefore and let us slay him and cast him into a pit. Throw him in the pit. We're going to kill him, leave him down in the pit. A lot of things are based on wells today. Water wells and stuff like that is a very spooky thing in a lot of stuff. So you can imagine being Joseph if he was hearing his brother. But he's not. He's moving forward. Watch this. Verse 21. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. So Reuben grabs him and says, you guys are not doing nothing to him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into the pit anyway, that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. So he's planning on finding a way to try to get him back to Jacob after here the brother did what they did. But Reuben's off trying to figure it out. They do something else. And they took him and cast him into the pit. And they sat down to eat bread. And they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, there came camels bearing slippery palm and mirth, going to carry it to Israel. So they have a caravan of people coming. They've got the spices. They got stuff like that. They're buying things. So now they're going to sell Joseph as a slave. Watch this. Come on and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. And let not our hand be upon him. For he is our brother and our flesh, and his brethren were content. So in other words, if we kill him, we're going to die. In other words, so that is, you got that thought out of your head. Do not do no harm. Because it never works out. So we got to find another way. We're going to sell him, send him somewhere so far away like Egypt, he'll never be heard from or seen from again. That's good. That's a good idea. So, verse 28. When they passed by the Mennonites, merchants, men, and they drew him and lifted him up out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returns to the pit. Now, Joseph's gone. There's no telling how many hours that went by. He's already been gone. They pull him up out of this pit. He don't know where he's going. These oddball looking people, and whoever who doesn't know the name or anything like that. Who are they? Probably don't even look like him. They pick him up, throw him in a cage, and he's gone when Reuben shows up. What did you do with him? Where's he at? And he returned unto his brethren and said to the children, the child is not here. Now where should I go? So Reuben's now thinking, what am I going to do? I can't go back to dad with what I've done. It's impossible, brother. And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid calf, goat, and dipped the coat in the blood. So they're going to come up with this story. They killed him, left him here, left him there. He's all over the place, Dad. We don't want you to see this, so we're just going to dip the coat in blood, and, well, we find out. Verse 32 from chapter 37, Genesis. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, this have we found. Know whether it be thy son's coat. So now they give it to Jacob. Everyone knows this is his coat. Coat, but no kid. So that's how they're doing the story. And he knew it, and he said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt He rents his clothes. He's mad. He's without doubt. Joseph has been killed. Something's wrong with the system, though. Remember, Jacob is observing Joseph in his dreams. So something is wrong. But for the good sake of whatever God's going to work with, he just rents his clothes. He says, I've had it. I'm done. What do I do now? We find out what happens. We find out what happens. So, as we move along here, we come right back up here. I got to find that spot I was at. So the Mennonites go into Egypt unto Potiphar, the officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. So Potiphar. Now we're going to move on to chapter 38. And we're going to just kind of ease on down through here, okay? We've got Potiphar's wife, who, put it this way, Joseph becomes number one over the head of it all. As we move into chapter 38, right there when you're reading, because he will not do favors for her and stuff like that, she throws him into prison, saying he did do something to her. But Potiphar was never sure of it. But you find out Potiphar's got to work with Joseph eventually. They wouldn't hear it. They wouldn't have it. Joseph did something bad. We threw him in a pit. We left him there. He's in the prisons now. So we're going to go through the prisons. Because hold on, I'll be right with you. There's another story in here that is very unique, but I do not want to get into that part of it yet. So we're going to right here. And we are working with... What time is it? I was supposed to stop at 12:30.
12:42.
Huh. There is a chapter in between here. Remember that? Okay, here it is. He refuses the wife of Potiphar. And it came to pass, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, he would not hearken unto her, to lie with her, or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house, unto his business. This is verse 11, at chapter 39 of Genesis, verse 11, is what I'm reading from. We're going to go to verse 12. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. Now she's changing it. She says he tried to do something to me. She has his robe. She has proof. She has evidence. So now she's going to turn the tides on Joseph. And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth. So he left. He was out of the way. He was out of the picture. He didn't want to be in part of it no more. And she called unto the men to the house and spoke unto them, saying, see, he has brought in a Hebrew unto me to mock me. And he lied with me. And I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass when he heard that lifted up the voice and cried, and he left his garments with me and fled, and he got out. He left. He'd leave garments, clothes, or anything to get away from her. But then she turns the story around where she's the wife, so guess what? They're going to throw him in prison for a crime he didn't commit. We've heard a lot of people go through situations like that. God forbid if it happened to us. Amen. God forbid it. Now, Joseph finds another thing, though, while he's in his dungeon. he ends up with some people in prison. We know this. He becomes the head guard in the dungeons. You read it. He gets with the guy. He lets him have all control of it because he knew how it worked. And he enjoyed it well. He enjoys what Joseph could do for him because Joseph knew more about the dreams. He interpreted them as well. If you go to chapter 40, verse 1, you'll find this out. And Pharaoh was wroth against 2 of his officers, against the chief of the butlers he's mad at, and against the chef of the bakers. So he's mad at the chef. The chef is, check this out. He put him in the ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, and the place where Joseph was bound. In other words, Joseph is there. You read up in chapter 39, you'll find where he gets control over the whole prisons. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them. He needs to serve the royalty because the butler and the cook, because this goes to the king. Now, I want you to observe what I'm fixing to tell you about their dreams. Was very curious of what was happening back then. Today is the same thing happening. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream one night. Each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. So, they're bound in the prison together. They're talking to one another. Everybody feels comfortable around Joseph, and they talk. Well, Joseph hears, they both, he, like I said, he's got to take care of the royalty, because that goes to the king. Joseph's going to make sure everything's working like it should for the king. Now, at verse 6, Joseph came unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And the Pharaoh's officers with him in the ward of the Lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye sadly today? In other words, he's trying to uplift them. Joseph's doing his job. He's checking on these guys. Why are you sad? So, here comes some inspiration. It does. Most people feel that inspiration. And they said unto them, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpretation of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. I want to hear dreams myself. I want to know what God is relaying through people to me. So I'm not a person who sits here and goes, don't tell me a dream. It's my own little comfort zone. What did God tell you to? That's what I lay out there. Because a lot of people tell me about the things they've seen, dreams, stuff like that, that I relate to in this story myself. So I love that. I love hearing that. And Joseph said unto him, okay, so we're going to stop for a minute. You can stay with me live. I'm going to record this. I need to take a break, rest my vocals, and get back to it here in a minute. We'll stay live for just a few minutes. I got to hurry up. We're getting to the good stuff. I hope you've been enjoying this, enjoying the story. And we'll cut it up and make little shorts out of it, little short videos. So, just keep everything rolling like it is. Thank you. Intermission, everyone. We're going to be working out to Book of Genesis, chapter 41. We're at chapter 41. I love it. I love it. I love it. So am I ready? I'm enjoying the ride. So
Just still recording.
I know you are. I'm getting right here where I last left off. I've got my key points I want to really get to. Da, 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 da. Here we go. Chapter 40. Are we ready yet? Genesis. The book of Genesis, chapter 40. We're going to start there at verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against the two officers against the chief of the butlers and against the chef of the bakers. So he put them inward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season inward. In other words, they're on trial. The season represents a trial. So, something's happening. Pharaoh is mad. He throws something about the wine and the food. To know history, you need to know a little bit about kingship, how it works, maybe play a role of it or two. But here's the deal. As long as you have two things as a king to be satisfied, you have first the cupbearer who will bear the wine, and then you have the food. As long as you don't mess up Pharaoh's two greatest assets, apparently something happened. I'm going to say, if you read the story, somewhere in our spirit is tricked to say the food was bad but the wine was good. Here's two people who know each other. They can't believe they're both in a prison because somebody said something and did something, but yet they're all friends. Now check it out. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season inward. So Joseph's talking to them. They're getting used to each other. They know each other. So Joseph is talking to them. They had dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream, in one night. So at the same night, they're both dreaming two things happening at the same time. And each man according to the interpreter of his dream, and the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. In other words, they're there because something happened. We're going to find out. First, the cupbearer is in prison. So apparently everybody's trying to arrest the butler. He's going to bear the cup. He's a winemaker. So they're going to throw him in prison. Because the food, nobody wants the food messed up. I'm going to say that happens in a lot of life today. And Joseph came to them by the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he said to the Pharaoh's officers, why, the ones who were in the officers, what in the world? Hold on, that's funny. Let's go back to verse 7. Get a restart. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his Lord's house, the king, saying, wherefore, why do you look sad today? And they said unto him, we have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpretation of it. And Joseph and unto them do not know the interpretations belonging to God. Joseph said unto them, do you not know the interpretations of God? They come from God. He is the interpretations of them. And the chief butler told the dream. So, Joseph is telling them, tell me the dream. Let me know the dream and I'll tell you what it is. So here we go. And the chief butler starts out first because he's always innocent. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said unto him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine there were branches of it. And though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof forth, brought forth the ripe fruits and grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, and I pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup to Pharaoh's hand. In other words, it's going to be fresh. In other words, it's going to be perfectly pressured, perfectly put together every time for the king. It was his purpose. It was his job to do that thing. No matter how Pharaoh seen it, no matter how he observed it, he knew he was going to get the very best of whatever the butler could handle. So Joseph knows this from the dream. He sees it. He's interpreting the vine love being the cluster that would give to the cup what would be handed to the king. No matter how it looked, the king could care less. He wanted his wine. That was number one charge. No matter what, the wine must come first. So that's pretty interesting that he would tell that, and people would be like, wow, about how that would work. you know. Now we're going to verse 12. And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are the 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy hand and restore thee unto the place. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup unto his hand after the former manner, even thou was his butler. In other words, he's going to restore you, guy. He's putting you back on top where you belong. Okay? You've got this. Pharaoh knows this. It's going to give him a few days to... There it goes. It unsplit again. Oh, man. That's probably what happens. But anyway, we'll get back to it.
Lets us do it for so long.
Yeah. Just reset it and see if he'll do it again. So, he knows in a few days Pharaoh's going to start bringing in all these new flavors and everything, but he's still going to need that basic coffee, or in my world, coffee. I still love my coffee straight black, and the blacker sometimes the better, right? No. The point is, the king loved his grapes. It could be coffee or whatever, but the king loved it being the best. And if you notice the butler smashing the grapes up for him to drink and making sure it's right, perfect. I guarantee you there's not a spot one on them grapes. They better come off and put another. Definitely perfect as perfect can be. And after 3 or 4 days, the Pharaoh starts wondering, where's my drink at? I miss it. That's the number one thing happens. So, I believe they accused each other until, I believe the butler and the baker accused each other. And in the whole messed up situation, the one thing stuck out to the king of Egypt. I want my wine, and I want my food right. There you go. That's all the king asked for. And you'll see what I'm saying when it comes to the spirit of the story. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? Just give me those 2 things and we're happy. We're good. Now watch this. As we're talking. So we're going to go here. And now he says, he's going to restore you to former glory even better than you were. So the butler's like, yes. So the butler is loving it. So verse 14. But think on me. Now Joseph says, but remember me, please. When you're getting your blessings and miracles, think about me. But that doesn't happen for a little while, and that's cool. Joseph is fine with it. He's still doing good. But think on me. This is verse 14. Genesis chapter 40. Check this part of the story. I love this. This is a feeling you get all the time. But think on me, and it shall be well with thee. And show kindness, I pray thee, unto me. And make mention of me unto Pharaoh. And bring me out of this house. I don't deserve to be a slave to no one. That's what he's saying. I've done nothing wrong. So, what happens next? For I indeed was stolen away from my house and my land of Hebron. And here also I have done nothing. And they should put me in the dungeon. They put me in the dungeon whether I've done anything wrong or not. And when the chief, it says chief, but when the chef, baker, saw the interpretation. So in other words, he kind of seen it. He heard it. He felt it. He got connected with it. So the chef of the bakers, they putting out the food. He's doing all this stuff. He decides, hey, I'm getting the same interpretation. So he's going to spit it out there what he dreamed. And that's cool. It's a good thing in a weird way. But it is. And when the baker saw the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and the uppermost basket that was full of all manners of baked meats and for Pharaoh. And the birds did eat them out of the basket of my head. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation thereof. So the dream was really light, but it was there. And the only thing Joseph could do is tell them what he already knew. What's this? The 3 baskets are 3 days. So the same time, same place, 2 different stories. We get that. We understand that. Hey, how's everybody doing? I hope you're enjoying my storytelling. Verse 19, chapter 40 out of the book of Genesis. We're talking about Joseph, for those just kicking in. Verse 19. And yet after 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from thee, and they shall hang thee in a tree, for the birds shall eat the flesh from off thee. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday. Now in 3 days is Pharaoh's birthday. So we've got the butler who has just told his dream is going to reinstate him at the top. Now we have the chef of the palace, the top chef. He's going to lose his because the food, something's wrong with it. And he probably knew it as he put it out. But the butler, there's no other grape but the perfect grape going to go in for the king. That's what I'm talking about. Nothing but the perfect needs to go to the king. And Pharaoh knew this. There's where Pharaoh knew the difference. And he didn't compromise it. He wanted the best. Not just anything. Food is a dime a dozen. It's a million different flavors at once. But sometimes we get that one certain gotta have. And we keep going. And that's what I'm talking about, that connection. You gotta have it, because you know you're going to enjoy it. You know you're going to be like a king with it in your mouth. This is going to be the very best. I've been needing it. I've been without it 3 days. It's my birthday. Bring that butler in here. And guess who they got to bring in too? It's his birthday. So what happens? So we're now we're going to pass on up and go to chapter 41 from Genesis, the first verse. Now we know that the butler was restored. We know that the chef over all the bakers, that cookers and all that, he loses his head. But the butler forgets Joseph. And it's somewhere around 2 years. Here we go. And it came to pass at the end of the 2 full years. I said it was somewhere around 2 years. That Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. Now this is where it gets very important. It makes everybody want to read it, to understand it themselves. And it's beautiful. But there's certain connections everybody gets a certain way. So as I perceive, I also give it. So here we go. And it came to pass at the end of the 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed. And behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came out of the river 7 well-favored kind and fat-fleshed. And they fed upon the meadow. Now 7 different kind could be 7 types of one kind. 7 different things. In other words, different kind of animals. 7 of each of them. Different kinds of things like that. 7 each of them. So there's a lot of, and it's prosperous, fat animals, fat beasts, different things. And behold, 7 other kind came up out after them, out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kind upon the brink of the river. And all the ill kind and lean flesh kind did eat up the 7 well-favored fat kind. So Pharaoh awoke. And you see, Pharaoh's job as a king is to make sure the lands are working properly. So this dream tells him something is not right. He knows parts of it, but he needs the full detail. Because a Pharaoh and a king don't want the problems. They need the solutions. So in your life, when you're looking for, you've got problems going on, look for your solutions. Most people don't. I'm just saying, we're not taught that enough. Look for your solutions. So we'll find out that Pharaoh wakes up from these dreams. We're going to find out that the baker, the butler, he is in charge of making sure all these magicians come in, telling Pharaoh what to think, what to say. They just don't know what to tell him. When the butler remembers Joseph. And he's like, I remember somebody. From a long time ago, I was with him. He told me this dream. He told me what would happen. Pharaoh at that time, back then, 2 years earlier, didn't want to hear it. So, of course, the butler, him doing all this other new stuff, boom. I know somebody. I remember that. And he said he could do this. Interpretations, as if just connected in. He knows magic and he knows everything else. He's like some kind of super warlock prophet or something. I'm telling you, this guy's good. And Pharaoh, by going through all these people, he's probably the last thing he wants to do is hear something like that. Can't say I blame the man. So here we go. We're going to end up going into to the next part. So while Pharaoh wakes up, we got verse 8. Chapter 21. We're going to try to get through this quickly. And it came to pass for the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was none that could interpretate them. So he's telling everybody all around the kingdom, and nobody knows them. Then spoke the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. I remember I fought too. But I want to tell you, because if I'd have known this then, I would have told you that. If I'd have remembered. And Pharaoh was wroth with us. Okay. I had dreamed a dream one night, and we dreamed each man according the interpretations of this dream. And there was unto us a young man, there it is, a Hebrew, servant to the captains of the guard. And we told him the interpretation of our dreams, to each man according to his dream. He did interpret it. In other words, he told exactly what was coming to pass. And it came to pass that he interpreted unto me, it was so. Now he restored unto mine office, and him hanged. And then Pharaoh sent and called for Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And they shaved him up, they charged his raiment. They came unto Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee, and thou can interpret the dream for me. So yes, it seems like it happens pretty quick, but you got to put some distance between everything. So we got to slow down, branch it back out. In other words, the butler knows Pharaoh is mad. He's willing to do anything to hear what he interpreted. He needs to know the evidence of it. It's his kingdom. It's his pride and joy. It's his legacy. It's his decree to the people to keep them well, his land. And that's what he did. That's what he's working with. So, of course, the butler's like, I do know probably the very best. I didn't want to say it back then, but he's in the dungeon. Well, tell me where's he at. Send him to me. So they shave him up. They clean him up. They make sure he probably hasn't had a bath in years. He'd been in a tunnel, this dungeon, for years. He hadn't been out in years. So you can imagine what Joseph's going through. Coming through the light. And, they're dragging me through there. Or dragging, you just don't know what they're going to do to you next. But then, now he's standing before Pharaoh going, And then Pharaoh's like, come here. Come here. Sit up right here. I'm fixing to tell you something. If you don't get it right, you know what I do. And then, of course, Joseph sitting going, yeah. I'm just saying for fun. No, it actually probably was like that, if you think about it. So, we're at verse 16, chapter 41, Genesis. And we're enjoying the story. Now we've got Joseph, who is talking face to face with Pharaoh. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. I'm going to give you an answer of peace. That's what he's saying. Whatever it is, it will be peace. Well, naturally, Pharaoh's like, well, you don't know what I've seen. How could that be peace? It doesn't look right. So Pharaoh's listening. Here we go. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, my dream, behold, I stood upon a bank of a river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 different kinds of meat, 7 different kinds of food. Fat-fleshed, well-favored, everything. Prosperous. Everything's prospering. And they fed in the meadow. There it is. They had everything they needed. A meadow full of luscious grass. And behold, 7 other kind came up after them, poor and very ill, unfavored, and lean-fleshed. such as I never saw in the land of Egypt for badness. I've never seen this kind of badness. What's going on? And the lean and the ill-favored kind did eat up the first 7 kind. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them. But they were still ill-favored, as in the beginning. So I awoke, and I saw my dream, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up on a stalk full of goodness. Now remember, this takes you back to what he had told Jacob his dreams. He told Dad his dreams. What's going on, Dad? He was a 12-year-old kid. And Dad's like, just keep it to yourself. Go on. Someday, you're going to see something else. Now we got the corns and ears coming up from the very beginning. So we're back to that part. So you can imagine what Joseph's fixing to think. I'm going to die for doing this. Because if I tell him about his dreams, he's going to end up doing what my family did to me. Makes sense, don't it? So he's kind of messed up here. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. They're not different. And God had showed Pharaoh what is that he is about to do. So in other words, God's going to go ahead and show Pharaoh that away. Okay. And the 7 good kinds are 7 good years. 7 great years. Wonderful. They're going for the next 7 years with 7 different meats, 7 different ways, fish and everything. You're going to have it. And here we go. Verse 27, if you want to know where I'm at right now. Chapter 41, verse 27. Here we go. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kind that came up after them are the 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted from the east wind be 7 years of famine. So, the famine, we kind of know how the story works. They're going to store for 7 years. Everything, among the cities and everywhere. All the meats. For 7 years. There are ways you can do that even to this day. And you don't need a freezer. Is that not incredible or what? To know that. Next up. The corn. After 7 years. All the grains. It tells you 7 different types of grains. So that pretty much covers about every style of food you can eat. If you know how to put it together. So 7 wonderful, luscious years of this. How are we going to store that up for 7 years? They got ways of doing it. Look it up. It really does. There's really a possibility of that. So, the 7 years are going to come. Now this is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh, what God is about to do and show thee unto Pharaoh. Verse 29 from chapter 41, Genesis. Check this out. Behold, there came 7 years of great plenty throughout the land of Egypt. So, the whole world, to the world, it was Egypt at that time. And as everybody spans out to the whole world. So it's a world, you know. And there shall rise after them 7 years of famine. And the plenty shall be forgotten in the famine, and all the plenty be forgotten to the land of Egypt, and to the famine shall consume the land. I love this verse because I know I spoke it quickly, but let's slow down for a minute. Let's reread what exactly I said before I move on. Verse 30, and there shall rise after them 7 years of famine, and the plenty shall be forgotten. And this is the land that it was plentiful, in the land of Egypt. And the famine shall consume the land, and the plenty shall not be known in the land of reason of the famine. In 7 years, everything can be forgotten. How many times have I said that? Some people tell you thousands of years, but that's not true. Within 7 years of the hardest time of your life would not be spent working in a famine. It would be spent trying to collect things. It would be spent trying to find baths, trying to stay out of diseases, out of torturous situations. 7 years, you will forget everything. I don't care what you learn, but the famine will be that bad. And there came out of the dream was a double unto Pharaoh twice. And it was because that thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. So this 14-year reign is going to be over with before you know it. No. Yes, 14 years go by like that. I can tell you, I'm at 50. I've lived a few of them. So why should I lie to you? Here we go. Now therefore let Pharaoh look at the man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. So he knows something's bad coming. So Pharaoh's found the guy who can tell him what he needs to know. Remember, all he's wanting is his wine and his food. Right. That's all he's asking for. If you can give me 14 years of peace, pleasure, kindness, here it is. Go for it. It's all yours. That's what he ends up doing, because Pharaoh has to deal with making sure his land's run right. While he's running politics or spiritual stuff, he's also got to run it right. So now Joseph is fixing to air everything. Check this out. I want to tell you something else I find very interesting in history. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint the officers over the land, take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 previous years, and let them gather all the food of the good years, and come and lay upon the corn up under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep the food into the cities, and the food shall be the store of the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, and the land, that's right, and the land perish not throughout the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and the eyes of his servant. So Joseph pretty much told him, you know what we got to do. And Pharaoh's like, I know what we got to do. He's got the connection. Through his dream, he's seen Joseph, but there it was. They were connected. And he said, I know what I got to do now. I know what this dream brought me. It brought me prosperity. Not heartache, not hurt, but we prospered. So, now Joseph's the guy saying, you got to find this person. You got to go look for him. You know. But that's not what Pharaoh said. Pharaoh realized he had that connect. Like I said, Pharaoh's having that connection. And Joseph knew it. And he's like, look, go find whoever you want. I'm with you. That's my job. I'll just go right back to the dungeons where I come from. And Pharaoh's like, no, you stop. I know what I got to do. Check this out. Now Pharaoh takes his lead like he's supposed to. And then the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and unto the eyes of all his servants. So it brought that back. Everything Pharaoh said, oh, whoa. Ain't nobody going to argue with me. I'm Pharaoh. To Pharaoh, he's a god. He knows it. He knows what God needed him to do. And it brought to pass a beautiful relationship. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and the eyes of all his servants. Remember that? It's good to him. So he wants to keep getting better. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such as one as this? And a man in whom God, the Spirit of God is in. Like that. Well, everybody's looking around. I could do it. And then he's like, really? Come on. Pharaoh give him his chance. Pharaoh give everybody their chance. Eyes on you. But Joseph's sitting there going, I've had enough of this eye problem. You know, I just go back to my dungeon. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Now Joseph's like, what? I'm in a dungeon, man. You don't want me to know how to read and write. You don't want me to know how to build your palaces. Now you're telling me you find me good enough. That's okay. That's okay. What do you want me to do, Pharaoh? First. And this is Pharaoh's answer. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto the word, thou shalt be my people, be ruled. And only the throne will I be greater than thou. Well, first of all, Joseph don't want the throne. It's not about a throne. Joseph's worried about the people. So is Pharaoh. So they know the right connection. So that's how that works. They know what it's going to take. So they get together and do what Pharaoh says. Only on the throne. Everything else, here it is. He takes his ring off and hands it to him. Everything. Boom. This, you walk through, you go, you move, you say, you walk, you talk. You're me. And I'm you. Interchanging. And they had that. They were able to do it. Just interchange it back and forth. Like, you know, one eye to the other eye, back and forth. Stuff like that. But that's in the future talk. And Pharaoh took off his ring. Oh, there it is. There's the next sentence right there. So he took off his ring and handed it to him. This is all you need. And Joseph's like, but that doesn't matter. The king's the king. You do your job. And upon Joseph, okay, here we go. And Pharaoh took off his ring unto his hand and put it up on Joseph's hand and arrayed him and restored fine vestures. How do you say it? Word? Vestures. There you go. Of fine linen. And put a gold chain about his neck. You know, we find that in everything we do today. You know, from here, there, and yonder. We find it in the most simplest things. That's all Pharaoh had to do. Now Joseph moved on with it. Joseph has to move on with it. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knees, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Two things just happened. You now have two kings actually ruling a kingdom together as one. How does that work? Because the second chariot would be like the show car in the middle of a temple. Think about that. The chariot back then would have been that chariot. Everybody knew you don't touch, you don't ride, you don't get in, you're dead, do not smudge, you could barely breathe on it. Don't breathe on it was probably the sign they put up on the back of this car, this chariot. And now Joseph's like, what? So that's why he did that. He's like, it's yours, Joseph. Take it for a ride. I mean, that was a symbolic gesture that you're not going to break that relationship up. That's to the whole world. In other words, I'm not even going to get in your chariot now, Joseph. That's what Pharaoh just said. That is yours. When you move, you walk, you talk, you might as well be me. In other words, if there's any traitors out there, if there's any treasonous out there, if there's anybody trying to seek me harm, they just done you harm. They had that connection, and it was working well because God had the system in place. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all of Egypt. In other words, you touch him, you touch me. You harm him, you harm me. I hear whispers of you harming me, you harm him. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And Pharaoh took Joseph a wife. Called Joseph a wife. I could get into that. She is a priestess of On. Just put it that way. We will get into that later. And Joseph married her. Even though, you know, he may have been married in the dungeons or something. It no longer mattered. He may have been married in the dungeons, but he got married up here because guess what? There's no other way. God wants it. That's how it works. He knew he had to take the priestess of On. And like I said, we get into that. She is raised a certain type of woman, and she does that certain thing. And we'll get into that. That's why I said there's a chapter in between all of them. We'll go back and study it out, or we're sitting around talking sometime. We can talk about that. And then the 7 plenteous years of the earth brought forth handfuls. And they gathered up the food of the 7 years, which were in the land. So different grains, everything you would possibly need. And laid up in the food in the cities, and the food of the field, which were around about every city, laid up the same. So in other words, they laid up double on the amount they needed for everyone. Because they knew this famine. Actually, you want to eat more during a famine. So now you've got Joseph who's going around handfuls measuring because he had the numbers in his head. See, that's where Pharaoh understood. He did not have the numbers. Joseph had the numbers. He didn't need to tell anybody else. He didn't have to give it to nobody else. He knew the numbers. And notice by the handfuls, it was twice as amount. In other words, most people want to store up their goods one handful at a time, different things. But Joseph knew double amount, double amount, double the amount. Just keep doubling the amount. Because he knew you're going to stock it up for 7 years. You're going to eat more. You have nowhere to go. You can't work. The famine is so rough. You're not even going to work in these temperatures. Every work will stop. Everybody, till it's absolutely all you care about is finding food. We find that out. Then the 7 years of plentiness, and that was in the land of Egypt, were ended. And then the 7 years of drought began to come, according to Joseph and what he had said, and the dearth was in the lands. But in the land of Egypt there was bread. I'm sorry. It's old Bible, so some of the words are etched out. That's why I mess up a lot. But in the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was finished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith unto you, you do it. He wasn't mad at Joseph. They were hungry. Go do it. Go talk to him. They want to talk to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said, no, you do what you go talk to him. You need the food. What's going on? Well, we don't want to. Well, go talk to him because you're going to. So here we go. And the famine was all over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold out unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries, notice all the countries, came into Egypt to Joseph for how to buy corn, because the famine was so sore in the lands. Now, I'm going to finish this up. We're going to stop here in just a few minutes. I'll go back to it. I got this place and we'll redo the story.
You're almost at an hour and a half on this one.
I'm trying to finish it up. So Joseph now has already put the structure in place God wanted. So all the countries come to him. Now notice, Jacob, you keep reading on, go ahead. Jacob and all his brethren, they lose all their flocks. They lose everything. Jacob does not even want to be alive because the last so many years of his life was so torturous, he could barely even move. He didn't want to move. I want to stay here and be done with it. But the brethren, who had done all their good times and had all their big fun, knew Daddy was dying. You'll find that out. So they all have to go to Joseph and ask for food. They don't even know who he is. They think that they were going to arrest them several times in there. But Joseph would come out and do a very incredible thing. He says to the brethren, all of them, he knew them, but they did not know him at first because he was different. But when he came back, it's like a reverse Monte Cristo kind of thing, where here he is standing with his whole family in front of Pharaoh, and he's announced who he is. That's beautiful, isn't it? But they didn't have to pay for it. All they had to do was love. That's all Joseph needed. That's all he needed. A little support, a little backing. And notice they were richly reported. I mean, the reports of their riches, fame. And I love it because Jacob's the one who said, my days have been full of evil. My good days have been but a few. Don't we all live that way? It seems like it. It seems like our days just being stuck here, stuck there, problem on top of problem. But every once in a while the good comes into it, and it makes us who we are. God bless you all. Church of What's Happening. We're going to be putting out some short videos, cutting it up. Thank you all for joining. Those who go back and watch, thank you. Support. All you got to do is pray. Support. Get that one connection, one source. We're going to get off here. We're going to take care of more business later. At 11 tonight, we'll put something out. God bless. Got to go other places. Come see me at the store. Be there tonight. Bye. God bless. Bye-bye.